Hi everyone. My name is, let me get myself, let me see, oh, there it is. Okay. Just kind of setting up and making sure everything's working. So hi everyone, my name is Bonnie Duhart. I'm a professor and department chair of the ESOL department at Lone Star College University Park.
And I'm Paula Khalaf. I teach developmental English at University Park and credit English.
All right. And Paula and I last semester did a book club through Lone Star College that we really enjoyed about this book that you can see on the screen, Small Teaching Online, written by Flower Darby with James Lang. And the premise of this book is that tiny incremental changes over time lead to significant improvement in online teaching and learning. And the book is really amazing. We really highly suggest that you get a copy. All of the changes that are suggested are based on research from learning science. And the whole book gives so many practical suggestions that can be implemented by faculty in any discipline. We both teach things that are kind of related to English, but this works for anything. The original book is called Small Teaching, and that was written by James Lang. And then Flower Darby, who is an expert on online teaching and learning, took on the challenge of adapting it for online classes. So that's our inspiration for this presentation. And we want to begin kind of talking about who are our students and why do so many students decide to take online classes. And a lot of times could be an assumption that online students are lazy or, want to be able to take it easy. But it's really important to realize that often online classes are the only way that these students can further their education. And according to research collected by Darby and Lang, almost 3/4 of today's college students have one of the following characteristics. They've delayed enrollment in higher education, so they're post-traditional age. They have a child or another dependent. They are enrolled in school part-time. They work full-time, or they are a single caregiver. And almost 1/3 of online students have 2 or 3 of these challenges. And so these students may sometimes appear to be disengaged, but it's actually that they're really busy. And also, many aren't sure what to do in an online course because for many of them, it wasn't what they experienced in K through 12, especially those post-traditional age students. So with that mindset about who our online students are, we wanted to point out that we might be teaching a whole bunch of different disciplines. We might be teaching math or even physics or calculus, which is, you can't get any different from English than that. But at the end of the day, all of us, we are teaching humans. And even though there is technology between us, we can do many small things in our online classes that create a sense of community and can help students stay engaged and successfully learn. Paula?
Yeah. So, just to keep in mind, our goal is to give you some small actionable items that you can implement whenever to improve your classes. Most of us are trying to do that all the time. But since our time's limited, the Darby book has lots of other areas, but we're going to focus on 2 areas, which is building community and giving feedback, because those are things that we found challenging in online classes as well. For most of us, building community can be really intuitive in our face-to-face classes, but everyone's together at the same time. You can say hello to people as they come in the door. You can see their facial expressions. You can hear their tone. You can see that blank stare when they don't know what's going on. So that's not as easy to do in an online environment. So that's why we picked that one. Another one is giving timely and frequent feedback is going to be really important for keeping students engaged and learning throughout the semester, where there's that hesitation to kind of fall by the wayside as the semester goes on. We need to keep them engaged throughout the semester. So there's an opportunity at the end to share some, we're going to ask you maybe some small things that you've tried as well, but ask questions maybe as you think about them, but we'll answer them at the end. And then we'll start with building community. So most of us consider our classrooms kind of a community of inquiry, and good teaching is designing an educational experience for our students and facilitating that learning, along with creating those opportunities for social interaction and reflection. And then making new and creative connections to the materials. So it isn't just about the content of what you're teaching. I have a lot of colleagues who, and they say this about in-person classes sometimes too. They'll say, I don't have time to build community. I don't have time for those activities that do that because I've got too much content to teach. And we just, want to remind you that, yeah, you're teaching some content, but you're teaching human beings. And those learning experiences are designed for them. The research shows that when you have that cognitive, social presence, and teaching presence all together, when those are really functioning well together, it creates this sweet spot where learning is very engaging. And students need opportunities to learn from each other when it takes the pressure off of you. If you can get them working with each other, then you can capitalize on that various experience and knowledge that all of these students already have. So interacting with others is a key to component for us being able to learn new things. And it can be challenging to accomplish in person. It's kind of daunting sometimes in online groups, but it does maximize the learning. In an online class, students might easily forget that there's a whole other group of people there with them learning. And because they're not there synchronously at the same time, maybe they forget that people aren't there. So one small change that you can, it seems very obvious, but sometimes we forget to do this,
Oops.
is to show students how to contact each other in the LMS right at the beginning of the semester. Another thing that it also seems obvious is that we have to remember to show up for class in our online classes. We build these, we spend a lot of time prior to a class opening, really building that and making sure everything's working right. We have everything the way they want it. And then we're kind of exhausted. So, but sometimes we can fall by the wayside as well. But it's very important to show up for class. Make sure you're welcoming students. It shouldn't just feel like a blank when the semester starts and it opens and kind of like no one's there. So they found that when they did this research, they found that students have higher course satisfaction for instructors with greater levels of social presence. And that's important. We might sound like, well, that doesn't sound like real data, but it is important because it correlates to their engagement and their persistence in the class. So show up frequently in your online classes, reveal your personality. When you're creating those videos, don't make them perfect. Go ahead, make the mistakes. You don't have to redo it. Let the cat walk across your keyboard, let the dog bark in the background. Show that you're a human being and that we all have these same challenges. You can do a video introduction of yourself to the class, very short, less than 5 minutes, maybe include some biography. Let people see who you are, what your personality's like. I think remind students that there are others in the class. I have on the screen there's a button that they can click. They can add a video in their LMS very quickly. So if you show them how to do that, that could be part of their own introduction to the class, as perhaps a video. But let students see that vulnerability that you have also. So another thing you might think about in showing up for class is showing up for discussions. And I know that that's a lot of posts. That's a lot of things to get through. And maybe you don't have time to read every single one or reply to every single one. I'm certainly not suggesting that. But choose a few posts to reply to. Maybe choose the post that no one has replied to yet. Let students feel that that you're there, that you're listening and you're hearing what they say. This has really been essential in helping me improve the discussion assignments themselves, and know what generates discussion. So it helps me get to know them, acknowledging great ideas. They're great ideas. Maybe somebody said something really great in the discussion that you saw. Maybe you could include that in an announcement that you add for that week. Say, this was a really good idea that I saw. What good ideas did you see? One more tip is to require students at the end of their post to include a question, and that encourages the discussion, extending the discussion, and encourages replies to their discussion as well. Require peer-to-peer interactions. I know that this is difficult. They don't do optional, so you've got to require it. There are lots of ways to do this. One thing that I loved, and I'm implementing it as I go throughout the semester to my assignments, all of them, not just the discussion post, is to really provide these clear instructions and expectations for discussions. So we have to model that teaching, the respectful kind of discourse and what you expect. So I have very specific directions. And one of the things that Darby says is something simple. Just make sure you say in your directions, here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. And don't forget the here's why I want you to do it. The why is so necessary. I usually make the why connected to the real life place where they're going to use this, what we're talking about. And I actually have students noticing that. They're appreciating that. They're saying, thanks you for helping me with something that I'm going to use in the future. I also make some of my groups smaller. I usually teach 2 sections of an online class. So when I combine that, that's 50 students. Well, that can be an overwhelming discussion group for students. So you can have smaller groups of students in 10 or 12, anywhere from 8 to 12 probably, and they can do different activities for that. Then it's not so overwhelming, and they get to know each other better if they're in smaller groups. One task that I use the LMS smaller group feature for is peer editing. So it's one of those helpful changes, again, is to the directions. Here's what I want you to do, how I want you to do it, and why I want you to do it. And then explaining that relevance really helps. I've included an example here of.
Yeah, I'm trying to open it.
It might not, but it will work in there when they look at it later on.
Yeah, I pulled it up right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what this leave site. I'm just going to leave that there because I don't know. Cancel it. Okay. I don't know if my computer's going to explode when I click on that button. Okay.
Okay. So, so I highlighted here's what I want you to do and how I want you to do it. And I've got very specific things about what I want them to post and how I want them to reply. What are some of the acceptable types of replies? And I always teach them to start with, sharing writing can be a really vulnerable place for students as well. So I have to teach them how to do this in a really respectful way that helps students so they don't feel like they're attacked, but they feel like their other students are actually helping them improve their writing.
All right, let me come back over here. Sorry, everybody. Wait, right back there. Yay. Okay.
That's okay.
Let me go to the next page. Okay.
Okay. So another small change you might consider to enhance discussions is maybe setting 2 due dates. Now, most of us have a weekly due date for our courses. I actually use 2 due dates per week because I've found that students wait till the last minute to do things sometimes. And it's really kind of hard to generate writing that I want to read at the last minute. And so I set 2 due dates. And I use Monday nights for the majority of the work that I have students do. But so I'll have an initial post due on a Thursday evening, by Thursday evening. And of course, they can do it anytime before that they want to. But then all the replies are due on that Monday night. And this gives I find that students are more engaged when you give them a little bit of time and for thoughtful answers and thoughtful replies rather than there's not too much time that lapses between the posts. And then students aren't all scrambling to kind of get a post done at the last minute and get their replies done at the same time. So I found the two due dates really helpful for discussions. Definitely in the Darby book, but I've been using this assignment since before that. I create some sort of cultural inclusion in your class. We want to get to know our students. We want to know who they are. We want them to know each other as well. So this is just one of the assignments I use. There are several different ones, but the My Name assignment, I use this in both in-person and online classes as a first assignment. I let them know why we're doing it. So I want them to tell me a story about a name or a nickname that they use, because names are really important. We use a model from Sandra Cisneros. I tell them exactly what steps I want them to go through to do this, but I tell them why we're doing it. And it's really because these stories become very powerful. It honors who they are and who they come from. So it makes us aware of all of these things about them, and it allows us to build on their cultural capital. And what I mean by that is that they all have such varied experiences and knowledge. And so finding out what some of those things are, not only just for me to find out about them, but for them to find out about each other, really builds the trust and the community in the class and generates good discussions. So I do this assignment also and share it as a model. I kind of use different assignments for each course. So the My Name assignment, it just happens to be for my English 1302 course. I use I Am From poems for my English 1301 class. And then I've tried 5-slide PowerPoints as introductions. I've tried maybe just listing things about themselves in the discussion post, but also maybe what's their motto? What are their strengths? Whatever you do, as I do it as an assignment, but when you do that, make it shared with the class so that the others can get to know each other as well. So the next one is kind of create this culture of caring, and we saw our keynote speaker talking a lot about this morning. So when you build community, you're also building that culture of caring. And there are many ways to do that. And one is just keeping in mind that these are mostly working adults with lives, and they need a little bit of flexibility in their schedules. So, one small thing might be to allow them to revise and resubmit an assignment. Some of you might gasp when I say this, but I actually let students, they have 4 writing assignments, but for the first 3, they are allowed, if they don't like their grade, if they're not satisfied with their writing, they are welcome to take my feedback and they are welcome to update that assignment. I want to keep this focused on learning rather than grades. And I have found that it does not take me long to regrade an assignment. If that's too much for you, then just think about letting them revise one assignment for a different grade. Another thing that you might think about is, I don't want to have to answer every single time when a student, has an emergency at the last minute. I don't want them to feel obligated to explain everything to me. I just give them 1 or 2 no questions asked opportunities to submit an assignment. So, that gives them some flexibility too. I also, in 2 of my grade categories for our journals and our discussions, I'll drop the lowest grade so that if they miss one, it's not a big deal. Something happens during the semester. I teach long semesters, so something's going to happen at some point. They are there to learn. And I'm a really firm believer that grades shouldn't be punitive. So I think that when grades can accurately reflect their learning, and their ultimate ability to meet the learning outcomes, then we're doing the right thing. Another way to kind of create that culture of caring is to just ask them periodically, how's your semester going? Um, this encourages them to reflect and stay focused on their goals. Um, Sometimes I just send a positive message of just, inspiration. I'll find a quote or something to say, how's this going? Keep this in mind. Stay strong. You can do this. Um, Maybe schedule 5-minute phone or video conferences to tell them what they're doing well and how they can finish strong. Don't make your communications with students all start with something negative. Make sure you're reinforcing the positive things that are happening in the class. Um, anyway, so whatever you decide to do of these little small things that we have, make sure that you sustain it throughout the semester. Don't start strong and then kind of let it fall by the wayside, because students kind of pick up on that level of energy as well, and then they can stop participating also. So our courses are always evolving and improving. I do something different in a course. I update it every single semester. So I hope you've heard at least one building community change that you might add or make to your online class to improve that engagement.
Awesome. Love all of those ideas to increase teacher presence in the class that we're there. And so I'm going to focus on our second core idea for today, which is in the area of giving feedback. And there are two, well, so the first part, I guess, is that Darby and Lang point out that if we want online students to actively engage with the course, then we have to engage with them as frequently as possible through fair and helpful feedback. And it's also, important to point out that friendliness and openness and interest in students has a really big impact on their learning. And those kind of things are usually a lot easier in a face-to-face class where students can see your facial expressions and body language and you see them every week. Online, we have to make a greater effort to achieve the same outcome. So there's two main concepts that I'm going to go over that are exactly from the book. That's what she says are the two main core ideas are make it timely and make it relevant. And everything ties back to these two. So start with make it timely. Number one, don't give more than you can grade in a timely fashion. And I think we've all had that where we get overwhelmed and all of a sudden it's been 3 weeks and we haven't given feedback on something. And that's not ideal. It causes anxiety for students. And it's just not a good feedback loop, as we'll see before, because the timeliness helps to make it relevant. So the goal is to balance frequent and meaningful guidance without creating an unsustainable demand on our own time. And she gives some ideas on how to streamline grading and make it a little bit easier. If you are not able to keep up with it, you might need to rethink the assignments that you're giving so that you can make it manageable for yourself to give the feedback. So one of the things that Paula already brought up and Flower Darby mentions extensively in her book is to consider your availability when you're setting deadlines. And I find that a lot of times, I think just by default, we might set our deadlines as Sunday night. I don't know why, because really there's no reason for that. Now, if you like Sunday night, that's fine, but we need to realize that as students, most of them will procrastinate and then be working on it at the last minute. And I know Paula is the same as me. We don't want to receive a lot of emails or panicky texts from students on Sunday as they're trying to complete work. So we have found it, better for our availability and our time to close modules on a Monday or a Tuesday and a Friday. I do Tuesdays and Fridays, for example, or you could have your module close every Monday night. And that way, when students are working on it on the weekends and send you text messages or emails, you have Monday to answer them before the things are due. And then, of course, there you might want to consider making things due twice a week. For example, like we said, like on Tuesdays and Fridays, instead of just once a week. But that's really up to you. You need to think about what works for you. When do you want to be giving feedback to students? And that's the time that you would want to schedule things to be due. Because you don't want to have scheduled things to be due when you don't have time to grade it, right? So another way that you can make this a little bit easier for yourself is by using the rubric tool in your LMS. We use D2L at Lone Star, so those are the images that I've put in there. Darby and Lang said that investing time up front can really pay back later on in the semester. So it can be a little time intensive the first time that you create a rubric, although, you can try using ChatGPT, for example, to jumpstart your ideas. And then, make sure that your categories in your rubric and your descriptions align with the assignment to make it easy for students to know what they need to do. But once you've made that first rubric, you can just copy it and then kind of adjust it. So if you're doing, in our case, English, one is an argument essay and the next one is a descriptive, you can just switch out that one word because basically we're kind of looking for the same things over and over. But that grading, it's so much easier later on when you just need to click. And then if you want to give specific feedback, one of the suggestions is to keep a document online with the feedback that you most often give, so you can just kind of copy and paste that into the areas for written feedback. And that can just kind of streamline that grading to make it easier for you so that you can get it back quicker to students. Another option that they bring up are intelligent agents. And these can be used in a variety of different ways. I think a lot of us learn about intelligent agents as a way to kind of, as like kind of a reminder to students that are not logging in or didn't turn in an assignment, or kind of negative way. And we really recommend using it for positive feedback, perhaps on the first assignment that they turn in. Yay, you submitted it on time. You're off to a great start in this class. You can also use it for a completion grade. If they just needed to turn in a screenshot of something that they completed it, when they turn it in, you can have an intelligent agent say, very good, you're done with that, well done. And then you just put in the grade. So, there's different ways that you can kind of use those to simplify without going overboard. You definitely want to consider limiting the use of those intelligent agents for negative feedback, because it's difficult to communicate tone in those. And, it would probably be a lot easier to send that kind of feedback with a phone call, like Paula said, or we're going to talk about later, or with a video or audio where people can hear your voice and your concern. But if you are going to write it, try to start with something caring, like I'm concerned, or I want to know how I can help, and not just an email saying you did not turn in this assignment, it was due on this date. But this is another way that you can kind of streamline so that you can get that more timely feedback. Again, kind of everything comes back to this caring, because as Paula said from the keynote, it's such an important part of our courses now. We want to try to reduce student anxiety by being responsive to questions and returning assessments as soon as is reasonable. So another small idea is to explicitly state in your syllabus when students can expect to hear back from you. Perhaps on larger, big assignments or major grades, you might say that the turnaround is 2 weeks. But for smaller assignments, you're going to try to get back to them within a couple of days. And, if something comes up, just tell students. Things come up all the time for them and for us. You can just be real and say, hey, I'm sick right now and I'm going to be a little bit later doing this, and they will understand. But the idea is just to have this communication so that they don't feel anxious or they don't feel that they don't know what's going on. Of course, you can create that human connection through a phone call. I know for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I don't have time to talk to all of the students. Well, you don't have to talk to every single one. It might just be some of them. It might be faster to talk to them for 5 minutes than to write them a very long email that we don't know if they're actually going to read it or understand it. And with a 5-minute conversation, you can let them ask their questions. And I think that it really does show a level of caring that is so important, because Paula told me this one day, and it's always stuck with me. Long term, they might not remember all the content, but they will remember how you made them feel. And so if you are worried about them or concerned, a short phone call or a voicemail or just reaching out can really help. Um, Another way to no, so this came up in the community, but it's also coming up in the feedback, is to give meaningful and relevant feedback via the audio and video tools in your LMS, or to use a screen recorder like Loom or ScreenPal. Those are both free, which records your screen and your voice. I put a couple of videos here. I mean, I always look terrible when I look at myself. So Paula was saying, don't worry what you look like. I can't, I look terrible. I don't do my hair. I don't really, I don't do them in my pajamas, but I just try to be real. The dog barks, the gardener comes by, the doorbell rings. But I do try to send a lot of messages to them personally or to the whole class. And there are a couple of things linked there. There's also a video, but I won't go too over because I know we want to have a little bit of time for question and answer. There's also a link in there to another screenshot video where I'm going over a student's assignment that she misunderstood. And I'm explaining how she can redo it. Like Paula said, I gave her another chance to do it and turn it in again for a higher score with no late penalty, and was just explaining to her. It's just easier sometimes than writing a long email. Don't worry about perfection. And one of my small changes that I made for this semester was to try to make a video that wasn't sitting in my office, just to make one out on the street in my real life. So they see that we're real people too. We got things going on. And I think that also builds community. And then the last part about the relevancy is to always include in your feedback clear directions on how to improve for next time. And there's a variety of different ways. Darby gives other ways. Paula has her ways. We all have different ways, and you can make your own way, but the idea is always the same, that there's kind of two parts to the feedback. We're not just going to give a justification for your grade. So for example, you didn't, you have multiple comma errors, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you're missing this, you're missing that. That's kind of justifying the grade that we're giving. And what we want to do is also say, hey, you did this well, or this is how you can improve it. So you might want to split it into this time and then next time. So this is what you did on this one. And for the next time, this is where you could improve. And just, it's kind of a different mindset when you're giving the feedback. Another way to do it is what works and what needs work. And that's really nice because you're also telling them what they did well, because there's always something good in everything. Or another way of doing that is you can write strengths and then for improvement, which is kind of the same idea. So that's kind of a nice way of saying what they're doing well and what they can work on for the future. And lastly is to break down any major assignments that you have into smaller steps throughout the semester. This is a very large concept for Darby to set students up for success. So they start on that final project in week 1. So if it's going to be, for example, a multimedia presentation, perhaps in week 1, you have them start making a video of themselves or a small PowerPoint presentation with 2 slides, but they're always working towards that final project. And you give relevant and timely feedback on each stage, because we want to offer frequent opportunities for students to succeed so that they feel that they are doing well. As they're working towards the more high stakes ones that usually come towards the end of the semester, we want them to make it to the end of the semester. So maybe you were like Paula and I, that we were like, oh my gosh, that was a whole bunch of stuff. I can't do all that. Like, I can't call students and make rubrics and do this and do sometimes when I think about redoing my online class, I want to cry because it's so much work. So that's why we put the stop there, because we don't want you to get overwhelmed, because you should not do all of these at once. And that's really the whole point of this book and why it's called Small Teaching Online, because the goal is tiny incremental changes that over time add up to an amazing online teaching and learning experience for us and for our students. So with that, we wanted to let you share your small changes. I already saw some really good ones in there in the cat box because we're feeling kind of silly, so we made a typo there. And so please be, we'll look, Alana, if we have any questions.
Yes, we do
How are we
have
doing on time? We
one.
got what time do we finish?
We have 6 minutes.
Oh, jeepers.
So
Okay.
we have one question in the Q&A. It says, I like the 2 different due dates for discussion posts, the original and reply. Have you found a good way to get around the limitations of the LMS if you use post first discussions? Like where they
Yeah,
have to post before they can reply, right?
right. So I don't make all of my discussions, aren't all of them they have to post first. It depends on what I want them to do. Sometimes if it's early in the semester, I don't want the shy person to wait, and I want them to be able to see what some other people are saying before they reply if they kind of lack that confidence. But I do know what you're talking about, because it really isn't possible to set a firm due date for a discussion post, at least in our LMS. You can set a firm due date for the initial post, but it's hard to set that due date. It is something that I have to check. It doesn't take me long to check that, though, in my when I'm going through the statistics on it and when did students post. It doesn't take me too long to figure that out. But I understand that's a challenge, and sometimes I kind of just have to trust them to do it. But you could use an intelligent agent and say, send out something and say, hey, your initial discussion post is due tonight. Have you done it yet? I don't know. I don't have any. Do you have any other creative suggestions for that, Bonnie?
Not really. I mean, no, not really. I just do 2 due dates.
Yeah.
That's it. So the original post is due on Tuesday, and then the responses are due on Friday. I usually go in Wednesday morning, right away in the morning, and then just put the zeros in if they didn't do it, because it makes them wake up, and then put them in. And then I'll go back later and actually grade it, the ones that did it. But I don't see any other way of doing that. But I think that we can put that on the D2L website and request that to happen. And I guess they could make it happen. It's a good question. Any other questions in there?
Right. That was our only question. We did have someone raise their hand, but we are unable to promote you to be able to speak. So if you have one, it doesn't have a name, but if you want to put one in the Q&A section, we can get to it there. We just have about 4 minutes left. If there's something else
I just was noticing in the chat that somebody, Tim, I don't know if he's still here because I can't see who's here and who's not. I like the concept of drop the lowest grade. However, students see that as just don't complete one assignment. But at the end of the day, I kind of think that's okay, because I remember myself as an online student, sometimes it was just a lot of work, and I had a busy week and I just needed a day off that week. And so I might choose that week to not do it because I know I get one. So I think that that's okay. If we're going to let them drop it, we're giving them, I don't know, Paula, help me because you're better with words than I am, but it's we're giving them the opportunity to make that choice.
Well, I think also I have a lot of students who they know that a grade is going to be dropped. Sometimes they need it early in the semester because they're still figuring out how things work and they forgot to do something. But another way is that I have students who they're meticulous about doing everything, but as the semester gets near the end and they're getting busy with finals and projects due and things like that, they know they have that safety net and they can just go, I just can't find time to do that this semester. So I'm always okay with them not doing one of those. And that they're not major assignments either. Those categories, those are just from my discussion posts and one, and I'm a big user of journals. And so they get one journal category, 1 grade dropped and 1 grade dropped in discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, they're for those smaller grades in the course, not for a major grade. I see a couple more things in there. I don't know.
All right, we just have a couple minutes, like a minute and a half or so.
Yeah.
I don't see any more. Thank you so much, both of you, for everything. I will make a shameless plug for instructional designers to help you with making some of these changes.
Yes.
And they are, if you are at Lone Star, we are like available and ready to help you here. And that we are available to you all the time. And I'm sure that if you're at a different college, you also have instructional designers who are there and willing to help you.
Can I say something about that? I would never have figured out the smaller discussion groups without the instructional designers. They helped me so much doing that. I didn't know how to approach that at all. And they were able to, I told them what I wanted to do, and they were able to help me do it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yay.
I'm so glad that they can help. And yeah, you have so many resources available to you to help you make some of the small changes. So thank you so much for your amazing insight. We really appreciate it. And